So this week, our show up first ever show up positive spark I'm sharing with you is belonging. Belonging is the experience of inclusion and acceptance and just security and knowing that you're part of a group, right? When you come into an organization, it takes a while to establish that. If you're like me, you go to networking events, you don't always know other people there. It takes a while to feel belonging until you have been a return guest for many times and you start to know people really well. So the important thing about belonging is that it is highly related to job satisfaction and engagement at work. So belonging is important for business owners and for companies, because when you have a strength of belonging in your organization, you'll see that show up in the performance of the organization. But the other reason that belonging is so important goes back to my training in psychology. So let's talk a minute about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In Maslow's hierarchy, belonging is the third tier, right? It is the first social need above our physiological and safety needs. So it's a very important thing, belonging, right? Because that's fundamental. If you don't have belonging, you can't go any further in Maslow's hierarchy. But the inverse of this is true as well, right? If people have physiological and safety needs at play, then they are not going to be able to focus on their belonging needs because they need to resolve those physiological and safety needs first. And that is exactly what happened during the pandemic in a lot of organizations. People were really struggling with the concerns about their health safety, about their financial safety, right? Are they going to have a job? Or, are they going to get laid off? Are they going to make as much money? How are they going to care for their kids who need to now be home? They don't have any place to go, whether they're trying to work. And in some instances, people, really did have shelter and food scarcity issues that they had to deal with. And those are the very first level physiological needs. So even now, as we are reemerging from the pandemic and we are starting to go back to the normalcy of working in office again, and people are being called to return to work, it's very important that we remember that we're not just going to flip the switch and go back to what we used to have in the office. For some people, it may seem that simple, but if you're a working parent or a caregiver, this is a transition that needs the same kind of grace that we gave one another during the pandemic. And that's because it's a lot. Right? There's a lot of things that come with going back to work. If you live in a city, you likely have a really long commute and maybe an expensive commute. When I worked in San Francisco, I had to pay for my BART train commute in and out of the city. So you have to buy the passes and do all of those things. So you got to get back into the rhythm of that. Or if I was driving into downtown, then I had to pay for parking. And that's an added expense out of my budget that I've been able to forgo for 2 years. There are people who had babies while they were gone that are now for the first time putting them into childcare. And there's an emotional toil that comes with that for many parents that they need grace to work through. There are people whose kids were smaller that are now in school, and that whole transition of working out all of those kinds of things before school care, after school care. So there's just a lot of complexity that can come with return to the office that people have had respite from for 2 years. So this is why I think that now is a time when we need to have a little more grace for one another and a little more of that acceptance that we had, just like we had at the beginning of the pandemic. And one of the ways that we communicate our caring to one another is through belonging, right? Through outreach that communicates that we care about other people and that shows our willingness to support and provide help wherever we can. And this is an important way of communicating belonging in the workplace. So I want to give you 3 important ways that we can focus on belonging this coming week. And I'm encouraging you to join me in practicing these 3 things. So the very first thing is to look internally. Look at yourself. Think about where you are. If you have issues that are causing concerns and fears for you around your physiological and safety needs, and remember that includes your health or the health of other people in your family, it can include your financial stability, then it's going to be hard for you to focus on belonging. So you need to take care. You need to give yourself the space that you need to take care of you first, right? So make sure that you do that first and foremost. Then once you have emerged from your physiological and safety needs and you're ready to focus on belonging, it's time to start looking around you and paying attention to the needs of other people and noticing others who may be struggling. There's still a lot of families that I just saw a young woman who I'm connected with on LinkedIn whose child is in the hospital with 3 viruses, including the coronavirus. So there are still people getting sick. There are still people losing family members. So just really understanding and being empathetic and paying attention to what other people need. And it's not that you can always solve for them, whatever their physiological or safety need is, but you can be present for them and offer whatever support that you can as a friend and a colleague. So I encourage you to do that. Help people recognize the resources available through your company and through your local community that might be able to help them in their time of need. So this is the second way that we can practice belonging, is just to pay attention and meet other people where they are, and especially giving support however we can if they need to have those physiological and safety needs met. Thank you. Somebody just popped up and said, empathy is key. I agree. Empathy is so important. And that brings us to the third thing. The third thing I want us to pay attention to this week is to look for some very specific cues. And I've written them down, so I'm going to look up my paper so I don't miss any of them. But when you see these cues happening in your interaction with other people, I want you to recognize, ding, 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 ding. This is a place where I should extend belonging messages that can help support these individuals. So, and it's not always just about the other people. Sometimes it's about us. So you may be feeling this, or you may be noticing other people. So if you feel lonely or disconnected from the group, seek belonging, seek that belonging engagement with other people. If you notice a teammate feeling down, it's a time that they might need belonging messages. Or if they're withdrawn and quiet, sometimes you don't notice the emotional, but you see them withdrawing, not sitting with people at lunch or participating in the same ways. When people feel stressed and overwhelmed, and there are times at work when you're on deadline and things are kind of fast and furious, and the stress and overwhelm is there, and that's a good time to send simple belonging messages. And then the final one is just when you feel like the atmosphere could be a little friendlier. It's a great time to do that. So what is a belonging message? There are thousands of choices in how to give a belonging message. It's as simple as greeting people when they walk into the room, or inviting them to sit with you, or starting a conversation. All of those send belonging messages. But the best way to develop your skill at belonging messages is to think back about your own experience. When have you felt the need? When have you felt like an outsider, or felt like you weren't at home? And when has somebody reached out to you and helped you feel more pulled in and connected? And when that happens, that is exactly the idea that you want to steal. Steal that idea. My friend calls it R&D, which is rob and duplicate. I love that saying, rob and duplicate. So look at what has had meaning for you, and then follow that same meaning by turning that around and offering those same things to other people around you. The one thing I want to say in closing is that these show up positive challenges, it's so important for you to remember. I can't say this enough. This is first and foremost about you. When you want to create conditions in your workplace that bring the best out of you, you want to be a part of this show up positive challenge. And you start the work on you. Culture starts within each of us. We are each part of the culture. We all contribute to the culture. So we start with the work focused on ourselves. And then that will radiate out, right? So once you start working on you, it will radiate out to include other people. So then you'll pull your team in your broader organization. But you are creating the conditions in your workplace that you need, that you want, that are speaking to your heart and your mind. That's where you're starting. So hopefully messages of belonging resonate with you and you will work on this week. And when you do, let me know how it's going. If you have questions, reach out to me, communicate with me through this link, write in comments. I would love to hear what you're practicing, how it's working. And if I can answer questions to help you feel more successful, I am happy to do that. Thank you for Jim and AJ for watching and for commenting on the post. I appreciate it. I appreciate the support. This is our first Monday Minute. I'm bringing it to a close now, and I will see you back here next week. And we're going to talk about curiosity. So next week's Show Up Positive Monday Minute will be about curiosity. I look forward to seeing you then. Have a great week.